Hey, digital wildcatters. Welcome back to another edition of BDE. We're actually starting off a little somber, I think, on the show because we're recording this Monday, 9/11, and we've been sitting around the last few minutes talking about that day, where we were and the like. And my take on that day is, and this was kind of weird, where I was, is my mother-in-law called and said, "Are you watching the TV?" And I was kind of annoyed by her. "No, I'm not. I'm trying to get to work." And eventually she's like, "Just turn on the TV," saw what was going on. And this is strange, but for some reason I felt the need to go out and get my car washed. As strange as that sounds, I just needed something normal to do as I was trying to process it. So that was kind of my 9/11 moment of that happening.
I was on the corner of Congress Avenue and 6th Street. And Leslie, you know, that if y'all remember the icon Leslie, that half-naked man who ran for mayor of Austin, God bless his soul, he's no longer with us, but he was down below. I was in an office building. And what happened afterwards, we all sort of were stunned in silence. There was a bunch of us just watching the TV. My first instinct was to get my children out of school. And so I left to go get my kids. And I don't know why, but it was just didn't know. Well, I wasn't sure what was happening. But that was my first instinct. But I remember exactly where I was.
I saw the TV coverage. I was tying my tie, I remember, back in the day when
I'm already at work.
working.
He's tying his tie.
I just
Must be nice.
I just finished a physical at the Houstonian.
Oh, damn.
And was in the locker room, and they had 2 or 3 TVs on the wall, and it was just this slow, surreal realization. And then my phone's ringing, and it's my assistant telling me not to come downtown. And so
Houston was a target.
Yeah, and it was.
We all thought.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
Your mind, and I'm 40 miles from my house, which is back up the Hardy Toll Road. And I remember driving. I'd met a friend and a colleague at Starbucks there on Post Oak, just kind of what the hell's going on, and then took off and went home. And I just remember driving on a crystal clear day up the Hardy Toll Road where, the inbound flight patterns are coming in pretty frequently and low across the Hardy Toll Road. There wasn't any. There weren't any inbound aircraft. There were no aircraft to be found, and it was a day you could see them all. Right. So that was just really the kind of the beginning of a very long day of trying to process all this.
Yeah, I think the other kind of, and I mean, it affected all of us very profoundly, and we could tell a million stories, but just aside from getting my car washed, about 3 months later, I was in New York. We were fundraising, and it had become a memorial, basically. People were putting notes up, have you seen this person, which was heartbreaking. But I remember one note I wrote that a little girl had written in crayon on a sheet of paper that said, "Dear Daddy, I just wanted to say goodbye. I know you were so brave that day." And I mean, I still get goosebumps and well up with tears when I think about reading that card.
I had changed my situation and was commuting to New York, and actually had an apartment on the north end of Battery Park, which was just a mere few blocks.
Yeah.
And I was there kind of fall, December was through December was going back and forth, and then really started spending a lot of time there. Of course, that whole operation went on for quite a while. And the thing that I always remember was walking back to my apartment at night is all the lights, but then the smells. And then you'd walk up and down some of the streets that weren't barricaded and look in these businesses that, still had where the ash and the dust had gotten under the doors, and it just coated everything in these stores, and they had not been touched. And so it was just a real, it just kind of gets seared into you at that point. And it seems like a long time ago, but when this day comes around, it comes back to the forefront for I know all of us, as we were talking about it earlier.
I think the major impact is, and we've discussed this earlier. We're not talking about who, what, when, why, but just what's amazing about this day is seeing how the American people came together. Nothing rallied us more than something like this. It was amazing to see not only what happened in New York, but just across the country, how everyone we're Americans again. And think about where we are today. We couldn't be more not American. If you kind of look around every nook and cranny, everyone's claiming to be somebody different, but that was probably the day where we were the most aligned as a nation, don't you think? The people.
Well, I think literally every single American, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, anarchist, whoever, was rooting with all their heart and soul for George Bush to throw a strike when he walked out at Yankee Stadium. And no, seriously, everybody wanted him to throw a strike, and he nailed the strike.
Not only throw a strike, but throw it from 60 feet 6 inches.
Yeah,
he went to the regular mound.
He went to the mound.
Greg Swindell, who's great University of Texas pitcher. Thank you, Greg, if you're listening. He was there in the stadium. He's like, I remember that pitch. It was such a good pitch.
Yeah, and every single American cheered it, even if they didn't vote for him. So I think you're right about that. And I think the other big lesson, stating kind of obvious stuff, is just tomorrow's not guaranteed, everybody. So
right,
nobody had that on the bingo card that morning. All right, Mark, kick us off. The G20 missing in action.
Yeah, the FT had a piece, I think it was out a day ago, about the disappointment and the criticism coming from various climate groups that the larger G20 did not take the G7 proclamations or statement a step further. Yes, they did reiterate a commitment to tripling renewables capacity by 2030, but there was really no timeline set, and this is the real crux issue for the climate activists. The timeline to end fossil fuel emissions without corresponding capture. And so this is going to roll into COP28. There was a piece out over the weekend as well. Now that the industry, and oil and gas is leading this, is starting to show viability and commitment to things like CCS, the goalpost or the rules shift a little bit. With it's not about capturing the emissions, it's literally about ending the burning of fossil fuels. And so, more of the same. I think you've got a larger group obviously in the G20 than you do in the G7, and there's quite a bit of, wait a minute, what are we signing up for relative to our own economic situation and certainly our political stability. I think it's just a very unwieldy group to really try to put any kind of teeth into a timeline of that nature when it's easy just to kind of kick the can down the road.
Especially let's give an example of Germany, agreeing to decommission a wind farm and go back to mining coal. So the narrative is changing. You've got sort of, on one side, you've got oil and gas companies saying, wait, we can actually capture all this. We can burn the fossil fuels and we can capture the emissions. You've got the other side saying, we don't want you to burn them at all. Forget that it's actually okay because you can capture all of it. We just don't want you to do it. So there's a fight that's been brewing, but it almost seems like oil and gas is starting to win this fight. What do you think?
So here's my take on this, and I'll give a little example. My Uncle Terry practiced law for a gazillion years. He started off, his first job was working for Leonard Scarcella. And if you don't know who Leonard was, he was mayor for 54 years of Stafford, Texas, just down the road from here. And anyway, Leonard one day is in court and he's defending a lady that got a speeding ticket. And it's a speeding ticket. It's a $20 fine. And Leonard's calling witnesses and expert witnesses. After about an hour and a half, the judge just said, hold on, we're going into recess. Scarcella, get in my office. And the judge is going, Leonard, what in the hell are you doing? This is a parking or a speeding ticket. Just pay the ticket. What are you doing? He goes, well, Your Honor, that's my wife that I'm defending from the speeding ticket. And she told me 3 days ago that she had to teach school to put me through law school. And if I couldn't get her out of this ticket, it was all for naught. And the judge just went, Scarcella, why didn't you tell me that? And tears up the ticket right there. I want to do this with climate protesters. Just tell me what we're doing. I mean, this is just mind-blowing that it's like, we don't want to burn hydrocarbons anymore. Okay, great. Now we don't want to produce them anymore. Well, hold on, time out. We don't want to put carbon in the air. Just tell me what the hell we're doing, because it's tiring. And the sad thing is, every time energy prices are higher, people do die. So just tell me the people that are dying today are worth it. Climate.
Can we call that the Scarcella rule?
The Scarcella rule.
I like it.
You just got to tell us what the hell is going on. So anyway.
Brilliant.
We got nothing more.
Well, I mean, there's so much we can talk about Al Gore and his comments, and we can also talk about the water. The recent article about water.
Go to Al Gore on this, because I think this just rolls right into the Scarcella principle.
I mean,
we're going to call it the principle.
The principle. Al Gore, look, I mean, he became a billionaire over a PowerPoint, which is a pretty damn good ROI for, who knows how long he worked on it. But he tweeted, a new UN report has confirmed that we're not on track to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. This latest report card shows that we are failing, not because we don't know the answers, but because we aren't doing our homework. We need to rapidly phase out fossil fuels, dramatically accelerate climate finance, protect nature, deploy renewable energy, both rapidly and equitably. Now is the moment, blah, blah, blah. So a guy following Twitter responded to Al Gore. And this is his comment, which I think sums it up for me. At the Copenhagen Climate Conference in 2009, Al Gore said there was a 75% chance that the entire North Pole ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years. Never happened. In 2006 global warming documentary An Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore predicted that the global sea level could rise as much as 20 feet in the near future. Never happened. In 2007, Gore warned that stronger storms would continue to threaten entire cities. However, there's been a slight downward trend over the last 30 years of the Accumulated Cyclone Energy Index, a tool used to measure tropical storm activity around the world. In 2007 speech delivered in Norway, Gore claimed that the Earth's average temperature would increase by many degrees if the amount of carbon in the atmosphere doubled. Never happened. So, I think we just need to see and take it with a grain of salt. Is that there's going to be people always claiming, and he's been enriched by this. So you always have to look at people's pocketbook to figure out what their intentions are. But it is a little bit interesting that we're not even close to the Paris agreements, and we're starting to see countries and even companies backing off. I don't know. That's my take.
Yeah, and those that are pushing back or devising real solutions, like we alluded to with CCS and the oil and gas industry, which is really making great strides and taking the lead in a lot of areas, isn't really what this is about, right? It reminds me of a board meeting at a former employer. There was a litigator who was on the board, and one of Houston's more famous names from the distant past, and we were young analysts really just worrying about the ability to solve problems for our clients. And he looked across the table and said, hell, what do you mean solve problems? We want chaos and uncertainty and volatility. How do you think we get paid, boy? And so you're exactly right. Just the 3-word adage that explains most things is follow the money. And so this is in some more cynical segments, is a grift of epic proportions. And, how does a guy like Al Gore, who spent most of his life in public service, suddenly become a billionaire with a literal 0.000 batting average?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a quick comment on that, but I'm going to keep it to myself. However, speaking of, since this is right in line, not only is that sort of lacking context, but you sent an article that was pretty funny about the energy secretary taking an EV trip.
Oh, by the way, I do have to name drop. Backstage U2 hung out with Al Gore one day.
Yeah, of course you did.
I got a picture.
Did he want a photo with you or the other way around?
I am standing in the front of the photo, and he's kind of in the back. Maybe I'll send it to Jacob and get him to pop it up. He was pretty stiff. I'll just say that. I was kind of expecting.
What's he doing at U2 concert in the first place?
I don't know, but I was kind of thinking I'd get a good old
policing lyrics for Tipper.
Yeah. That's really funny. Anyway, I'll find the photo and get it to Jacob and pop it up on the screen here.
Let's go.
But anyway, I didn't mean to cut off the theatrics around our energy secretary.
Mark, it was described as a scene out of the sitcom Veep, but the energy secretary had a kind of show and tell EV caravan throughout the Southeast
to promote the IRA, right?
Correct, and just the viability of traveling long over the road distances in various types of vehicles. I believe they had a high-end Cadillac EV, which is called, I believe, the Lyric with a Q. Of course, they had Colin's favorite F-150 Lightning, and then they had a Chevy Bolt as well. And so the scene that was described as being really the kind of the nexus of the fiasco was an attempt to stop at a 4-point charging station in Groveton, which is a suburb of Augusta. I didn't know Augusta had suburbs. I thought
Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah.
I thought. Yeah, I mean, Augusta is known as a far away suburb of Atlanta.
Right. So anyway, 2 of the fast chargers were broken.
Common.
One of the advanced team parked an ICE vehicle in a charging space, which, by the way, according to Georgia law or under Georgia law, is not illegal. And so you've got someone holding the spot for the secretary's EV in advance of her arrival. Meanwhile, you have a family on a sweltering day with a very cranky and upset baby.
And they need to charge.
They need to charge to get on their way and also run their air conditioner. And they got so upset they called police.
Because some damn ICE car is sitting in my charging spot.
So they dispersed other vehicles, and I don't know if these were vehicles that were there waiting in line to charge or were part of the entourage, to other points distant to slower chargers so they could accommodate the secretary's vehicle and this family's vehicle. You can't make this up.
I mean, yeah, none of the three of us could, and we're pretty smart and creative. But
I saw one comment. What about dry runs? Don't all of these political show and tell grand shows, don't they all have dress rehearsals? To show up to a defined charging point and have 2 of the 4 available chargers not working, and or not having cordoned off that charging station to make sure that they were not in conflict with the rank and file who were out there trying to actually get somewhere and do something in their EVs, whether it's transport a family home or go to work, right? We've got a big video or photo op, and kind of all hell breaks loose because, well, the facility wasn't at full capacity. 2 of the chargers were broken, and you probably had a bit more of a demand because of just the heat that day.
Yeah. So there's my Al Gore picture. Y'all can look at it. So this is kind of interesting because Mark and I are both music guys, right? So we've got friends in the music business. And one of my dearest friends is a tour manager guy. And he swears that he could revolutionize politics if they would just let him schedule this stuff. You know?
Oh, sure.
I mean, he said the waste and inefficiency of political campaigning if they actually applied the rigor and the discipline of music touring, that it would be so much more efficient. You could get so many more stops in. You could do things so much better. There wouldn't be shit show mess like this.
Or in your example, I think of coming home from Europe, having Chick-fil-A manage the logistics outside of Terminal E or whatever,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, tour managers are masters at.
I mean, it's almost like the secretary is just completely blind, but there's a huge charging infrastructure problem in the U.S. We've talked about it. I've talked about my own range anxiety. You couldn't make it up. You couldn't get a worse timing with a family calling the police
on the secretary.
But it's almost like so apropos for
with a baby
trying to push a narrative that's where we're just not ready. I mean, Tesla's figured out the narrative. They figured it out a long time ago. The rest of the rest of EVs that don't have a charging infrastructure throughout the United States, it's just hilarious. I mean, I'm just laughing because it's such a great, it's just so great for us sarcastic people.
When we go to you, we're always going to say former EV owner.
I'm a former
Kurt
EV
Coburn.
owner. Oh, by the way,
both of us. I used to
you
have
know,
a
I
Tesla,
worked in Nashville and we owned a bunch of music labels, and I was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, and I got fired from that job. I didn't get fired. I quit. But my boss came to me after we destroyed a company in 2000. After 1999. Remember the bubble that burst in the internet? Music industry was part of that. Napster. You know how all that works. Yeah. I was part of the internet team where we destroyed a publicly traded company. So my boss pulls me aside for a drink and goes, "How do you think things are going?" I went, "I think this is not working out." But hey, I did work in the business, so.
Well, I don't know how we make this segue, but we'll just go from music business to water.
Wow. Well, this is interesting. I did not know. Okay, well, let's first reground ourselves. One GPT chat search consumes how many watts?
5 watts.
5.
And one Google search is what?
1 watt.
Well, a new...
Hold on, and real quick, and just to train the language to run that AI search is anywhere from 100 to 1,000 watts. So you had to build it before you could even do the 5 watt.
Well, so a new research study published by the University of California finds that just 5 GPT queries consume as much as 16 ounces of water. So this is a major problem. Water consumption is a major issue. Who knew?
16.9. Half a liter.
So the research actually looked at, and the research is the water usage by Microsoft, OpenAI, Google are closely held secrets. Like they don't want people to know how bad this is. But this research looked at Microsoft at one of their low energy consumption facilities, and they found that water consumption surged by 34% from 2021 to 2022, which is nearly 1.7 billion gallons of water. What do they need all this water for? They need water to cool the data centers. And even one state or one area, Des Moines, Iowa, which has a lot of data centers, is worried that the data centers are actually going to take away from residential use of water. So it's actually conflicting. The amount of water that they're consuming from the rivers is actually threatening the water supply for residents.
And
where does the discharge?
I'm gonna ask the dumb question: is the heating or the cooling process cause it to evaporate, but it wouldn't leave the tubes, would it?
I mean, you're asking a really good question that I have no idea. I mean, I'm gonna have to dig in. I'm just reading high level research here.
We gave you homework.
You did give me homework. I do know that there are technologies, but we'll find out.
So I guess the real question is how much or at all is it recyclable? We've talked in the industry past about how much water we can recycle in stimulation operations, but if they're consuming water to cool one time and then what happens to it and it's not usable again, I can't imagine what makes it unusable. But
I mean, just flat out more.
Yeah, why do I need more?
Even if it's a closed loop, and you probably need a bunch of water so that it has time to cool somehow, which probably requires more
Well,
energy.
also the compounding on the number of applications.
Yeah, that-
or
yeah,
trained
that's-
I mean, we do know
models
with
is
we do know-
exponential.
We do
right?
know with power plants, they consume a ton of water. But they ingest the water, and then they throw it back into the water streams after treating. I don't know how much evaporates, but in July 2022, the article goes on to say that Microsoft data centers in Iowa used about 6% of all water in the district. Just the data centers. That's huge. So let's figure out what actually they use with the water.
But even if it's closed loop, to Mark's point, it's just we're building more of them. We're building more and more data centers every day.
Oh, absolutely. And one of my colleagues when I was at Shell, it's funny, he invested in technology. I was like, man, I just none of the big like Intels of the world, they didn't want to have anything to do with this company, but we invested because the future of data centers potentially is submersible computers in oil and like in viscous but cooling materials so that they can run a lot cooler. Because we know that my buddy, as I said, one of the executives at one of the largest data center companies, Renee Anonymous, told us that many of their clients cannot afford to run Chat GPT or AIs because the chips run too hot. And so there's a huge sort of bottleneck that we have right now with building the data centers, having the energy capacity to build more data centers, and now having enough water to cool them.
It's interesting. A really good friend of mine, it was actually younger brother Jay's best friend during Rice days back in college, is at Intel, and we've been emailing. He listens to BDE and Chuck Yates Needs a Job because he's working on data center stuff, and a lot of it's about energy efficiency and the issues we're talking about right now. So hopefully I can get Zane to come on the podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to hear him.
Fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
Zane might be the smartest guy I've ever met, so it'd be fun to have him on. Now let's go water subset West Texas.
Mark.
Yeah, in the area of sustainability and what the industry has been dealing with, particularly since we've gotten into, high intensity fracture stimulation, horizontal drilling in the Permian 12, 13 years ago, you now have, I think, a greater realization that not only is it flowback water, but you've got this issue greater in the Delaware than in the Midland Basin of how much formation water are you going to produce over the life cycle of the well. And it's, typically not trivial, and it's also typically pretty nasty stuff. And so what's the right method, process, strategy for handling that? And I didn't read deeply into the details, and I don't know if there's a conference call on the JV that was announced this morning between Diamondback and 5 Point, produced water JV, in which 5 Point paid Diamondback a $500 million upfront. Diamondback retains a 30% equity stake. I think there's opportunity for future kind of cash earn-ins based on performance. And so I think putting a strategic JV in place around the area of produced water just reminds us again of a real issue that needs to be addressed by the industry and has been addressed. It's been off the headline for a while. Water is just another battleground in sustainability and environmental set of issues that are out there. So I think this was an interesting announcement this morning. Looking forward to hearing more about it. And I think, to the Chat GPT and the water needs and the management of all that, who knows, maybe the AI model developers are, open to learning something from how the industry is handling a very significant and very sensitive and serious water issue.
Because I know the Bitcoin miners are. We've seen that at our Empower conference of, hey, we got to keep things cool, we got to handle water, and so that's a real thing. Robert Norton, Case Van Hoff, guys, come on BDE, come on. Chuck Yates Needs a Job. We'd love to have you guys talk about that and find out what you're doing.
So before we wrap this up, Chuck, I want to preempt it, and we're going to roll into our last piece.
Okay.
But yesterday, I was seeing some of my boys on the golf course. They're Lubbock boys. And what I didn't know is that John Denver's from Lubbock, or he was in a band called the Caravans in 1964. It's like, damn it, another guy from Lubbock. What the hell is happening or happened in Lubbock? So I love the Flatlanders. Yeah, big Joe Ely, Butch Hancock, which my boy is third cousins with Butch.
Nice.
And then I'm a big fan of Jimmy Dale Gilmore. But Pat Green, I didn't realize Lubbock sort of just continues to crank out Wade Bowen. I mean, they keep cranking out all these great artists.
We haven't said the biggest name yet, Buddy Holly, but it was understood in that.
I was waiting to of course, Buddy Holly.
Right.
But what the hell is growing in Lubbock, man? I mean, why are all these musicians come out of Lubbock?
That's a good question. Have you seen Buddy Holly's grave?
No.
I've actually done that because I've gotten into I hang out in Telluride a fair amount, and I've gotten to the point now I just drive up there because I got
just to say hi.
Just to hang, But I've got a really good friend in Amarillo, so stopping and going to the Big Texan. I got a really good friend in Santa Fe. That kind of breaks the trip up. But you run right through Lubbock, and I've stopped and seen the grave. They've kind of got markers all throughout. Buddy Holly's grave this way.
Love it. And then of course Natalie Maines, which we were talking before the show.
Right.
Another Lubbock.
Yeah, exactly.
Musician.
So. Curveball, I'm going to throw at you guys on the same deal because we're getting to the same place. Top 5 country music songs of all time. I'll go first just to give y'all a chance to think. I think number 1 is He Stopped Loving Her Today. The George Jones. That's number 1.
And who wrote that song?
Ooh.
I sold the lyrics at an auction one time.
Did you really?
I
Holy
did.
Shit.
Handwritten.
Nice. Say the name of it.
Bobby Braddock.
Right. And what's his face? Malcolm Gladwell did just a great podcast on Bobby. That was cool.
Keep going.
Angel Flying Too Close to the Ground by Willie.
I like that. Willie would have to make it. I'm going to say, and we'll go around a couple more times. I'm going to say I Walk the Line, Ring of Fire, Boy Named Sue, Man in Black.
Okay.
One Johnny Cash.
Just throw it all in.
One of those Johnny Cash songs, because you can make a case for each one of them.
I have to bring one in that's by our vintage and timelines would be fairly contemporary, but it's a vocalist that's actually on my Mount Rushmore along with Ray Price, Marty Robbins, and George Jones, and that's Ronnie Dunn in Neon Moon. I think that is.
Oh, there you go.
That is.
I mean, I've just learned a new.
That is
side
top.
of you.
That is top 10 worthy.
There you go. All right.
Damn. I mean, speaking of Marty Robbins, I mean, El Paso is just it's classic.
Yeah.
That was my dad's favorite singer, so I heard a lot of that as a
actually,
kid.
one of my I had a Defender 90 that I bought from Amarillo. The last imported soft top Defender 90 before the airbag issue, they stopped importing them. I bought it. Her name was Felina after Marty Robbins' song El Paso.
So, do you remember in Breaking Bad that there was an episode named Felina?
Was that about
when he steals the car in New Hampshire, the Volvo? There's a cassette tape. He found the keys in the visor after he's trying to hotwire the car, and he takes off driving back to exact his revenge in New Mexico, and the cassette tape that was popped in was Marty Robbins, and it was playing El Paso. Nice. And so the whole episode is named Felina.
Oh, that's cool.
Silver Wings by Merle Haggard.
Okay, I had Mama Tried, so
great.
So I'm right there. I think country music's not complete unless we talk about the badass women, and so I'm gonna go with 3 of them right here. Jolene.
Oh,
I'm gonna go with Crazy,
written by Willie Nelson.
What was the original title?
Don't remember. There's a good story around that one too.
Yeah, the original title was Stupid.
Stupid.
Went in, and the executive's like, man, that's just not going to make it. Can I tell a little Willie sidebar story?
Please do.
So this is in his most recent autobiography, which I think is titled "It's a Long Story." And he's at Tootsie's, I believe, and tipping a few back, and it's really late at night, and his manager calls him, and Patsy was picking up the song, but was having trouble with the meter. Well, no one has a meter like Willie, so, kind of make it your own. Well, she summoned Willie to her house at like 2:00 in the morning. And he was so either starstruck or nervous. He's sitting in the driveway in his manager's car, and he wouldn't come out.
Okay.
And she's waiting on him, to have this discussion about the song. And the great Patsy Cline at 2:00 in the morning comes out of her house in curlers and a house robe and said, "Willie, get your ass in the house." Which is, she's struggling with trying to mimic his meter on the song, which nobody can do.
Right.
Only Willie can do.
Yeah.
Only Willie can do Willie's meter, and we know what happened after that. And so that was kind of a breakthrough moment, apparently, and she recorded the epic version that she did.
I mean, I don't have a song, but we're talking about famous country.
Yeah.
But Selena has to be thrown in here somewhere.
There you go.
I mean, we have to throw Selena.
So Selena did it. Okay. A little bit of cleanup on this, and then I want to get to why I brought this up. There's got to be a George Strait song at least discussed. I'll go with The Chair, although a lot of people go.
Yeah, I was almost going to say that.
Exes Live in Texas.
My favorite, which was actually written, one of the few that was written by Irv Woolsey, who is his career-long manager. I say Irv likes to, he invented partying for a living. Is I Can Still Make Cheyenne.
Yeah, I like that. I'll throw a couple out there. Hank Williams, So I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, Your Cheating Heart, Lost Highway. I mean, you can pick any Hank Williams song you want. My Willie song was actually Poncho and Lefty.
I love it.
Even though he didn't write it. But
love that song.
And then I was running through Jolene, Stand By Your Man, and then I had Coal Miner's Daughter on there along with Crazy. And then I'll go ahead and say this, and this may be too cliche to say, but I actually have this at number 2 on my list is Friends in Low Places by Garth. The reason I brought these songs,
might actually throw out Crazy or Angry All the Time by Bruce Robeson.
Ooh, I like that.
Became a number 1 hit for Faith Hill.
Yeah, and didn't sing it with
Tim McGraw.
Tim McGraw, yeah, the husband and wife sang it. Nice tie on that, because the reason I brought all this up, and I think the reason you started talking country music, is Charlie Robeson passed away this.
Hearts are heavy, man.
Yeah, it really is. And I want to say 2 things about him. One, I mean, last year was a crappy year. It just was. I mean, I was kind of in a funk all year. And those of you who have listened to the podcast have heard me talk about it. And
Do you need a hug right now?
I don't need one, but I'll get one.
Come on, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it. We got the camera. Oh.
Love you, man.
I'm so glad we didn't bump wieners. But no, so part of me getting to feel better is I went on a country music tour at the end of December. So I saw Hayden Baker, I saw Roger Krieger, and then on December 30th, I saw Charlie Robeson. And when he retired in 2018, I thought I was never going to get to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually really cool. And the second thing I will say is his song Loving County, I think is the greatest oil and gas song ever. The field hand kills the rich woman, steals the wedding ring so he can get his girlfriend back from the company man, winds up going to jail. And I will say this, I think Loving County can be included in the discussion of all the songs we just talked about. I think it's that good.
El Cerrito Place has a special place in my heart.
I get that.
I really love that song.
I get that. So we don't really have, I don't know who to give the finger to on that one. So,
We're just giving this is a tribute.
Yeah, this is a tribute.
This is not a finger week.
Yeah, not a finger week. But anyway,
We'll miss you, Charlie.
I will definitely miss Charlie Robeson. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Colin, again, is suffering from his prostate injury, but we hope to have him back next week. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to subscribe, give it to a friend, and we'll catch you next week.
And I knelt on the floor, and I put that ring in her hand. be with me soon. Then we'll all raise out in South Alabama. Well, I told her to hide that ring inside and wait till the time was good. I drove on home, and you know, I was alone, 'cause I thought that she understood. She knows she did. Show the next time, no friend. Just call me the wishes both well. You said it's sitting downtown. Sashaying around and down.